So I heard you say that you hold the belief that when men cry, they are either weak or girly. Is that true?
Uh, yeah. I mean, I just grew up. My dad told me like to not show crying to anyone because it was a form of like weakness. I mean, it's nothing like against my dad or anything. Like I've only seen my dad cry a few times in my life, but at the same time, growing up when I was a kid, if we got hurt during a sporting event or I don't know something like a death in the family happened, if you cried about it too much, then it was like, okay, get over it. Or if it was like something as simple as getting hurt in a sporting event, then he was just like, rub it off, you're good, get up. Unless something was actually, like seriously wrong. But I guess him being the dad, he knew if something was seriously wrong, which he did in a couple times growing up. But I just grew up with the belief that, if you're gonna cry, you weren't strong enough to rub it off. So
Do you relate that to if you have extreme emotion, then you're weak, or if you're vulnerable, then you consider that being weak as well?
I don't know if it's like it just shows. It's not that I find myself weak if I cry. It's that I don't want others to think that I'm weak. So I don't want to seem weak in front of in the eyes of others. I really could care less about seeming weak in front of myself because that's just myself. But
Mm-hmm.
so, like I said, growing up during sporting events, if I got hurt in a game, I would like even if it really hurt, I would just brush it off. Like I have a really high pain tolerance because of it, or I
Mm-hmm.
don't know if it's because of it, but yeah.
Okay. So when you see other men cry, do you view them as weak?
Um, I guess it depends on the scenario. Like again, going back to the sports thing, if you do it during a game and then you get up and you're fine, no matter what sport it is, I'm just like, really, you could have kept going on. But at the same time, I look at scenarios like my dad. The few times that I have seen him cry, and the few times were because there was a death in the family or something really serious was going on. Then those times I don't really see it as weak, but like those are the only times you're allowed to show it.
Mm-hmm.
So like but don't show it like too much because you're supposed to be strong. So
Okay. So do you have trouble showing your emotion to others
I mean, as far as crying or like
or any
getting
type of
upset.
emotion?
No, I mean I'm a pretty emotional person, but when it comes to like crying specifically, I mean I don't really cry that much because I feel like I block it out with more so like other using other feelings
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, so I mean, I guess I because it's in my subconscious to not cry, I just try to use another emotion, whether it be anger or I don't know, silent treatment or something like that.
Do you feel like that's a benefit to you, or do you think that hurts you or other people around you?
I mean, I see it as a benefit to myself,
Mm-hmm.
but again, that's just how I was brought up, and it's not a bad thing. It's just that that's what I see because of how I was raised, and so I expect other people to follow the same suit, even if they didn't come from the same mold.
Mm-hmm.
And but I mean, yeah, it definitely affects others, but I mean, again, that's just how I was brought up. So
Mm-hmm. So how do you think it affects others?
I mean, if as far as like, well, for example, my dad crying, I mean, he never cries, and then when he does, you kind of drop everything and stop and you go, oh crap, what's wrong?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's like one of the few times you're allowed to cry, apparently, so then I go through the same thing regarding anything. So, I kind of just put myself in my dad's shoes and say, okay, does this look bad to just me or does it look bad to other people as well? So, I mean, if it affects other people, then I just try to cope with how I'm okay with it as well as, I guess how other people are going to see it the best in their eyes,
Okay.
if that makes sense.
So like when you're showing emotion or not showing emotion, do you think it prevents other people from getting close to you?
I don't think it prevents them from getting close to me. It just prevents them from maybe handling things how they want to or how they have been raised to handle things. So I'm kind of like blocking off any, what's the word for it? Any outsider's opinion to my own
Mm-hmm.
problems and whatnot. So I'm just like very one-sided because of how I was brought up.
Okay. Can you explain more of the one-sidedness? Like, do you not see things from other people's perspectives, or you have just one specific view that you think that, like, one specific way you think you should act?
I mean, there's not one specific way, but if we're talking about specifically seeming weak or like a little girl, as a lot of people say, when you cry, then I just see it in the viewpoint of my dad. Like, if you ask me, what about my mom? Then, like, my mom would say it's okay to cry. But because my dad is the male figure in the house, and that's just, I was trying to be like dad growing up, that's what I modeled myself after.
Okay. But when you see other men cry, depending on the situation, you don't necessarily think that they're weak.
I like assess the situation on what they might be crying about. So if it's something as simple as crying because you stubbed your toe, you know, even if you are really young, like, 8 years old, I would tell that 8-year old kid, hey, I know it hurts, but brush it off. You'll be okay. Whereas if it was a death in the family, I would be like, wow, totally cried out. That's one of the moments where I would see it acceptable because of how I've grown up to just let it all out.
Okay. And do you ever think that you block emotions so that you don't seem vulnerable or weak?
I don't think I block them. I just like prevent showing them. So I mean, I guess that's blocking them, but to me, that's not blocking them because I'm obviously still thinking about them myself.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not. Sure, I'm blocking it to others, but I know that they're in me still. So.
And how do you find an outlet for those emotions?
I mean, I usually just listen to the type of music on how I'm feeling.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And does that seem to work?
Yeah, I love music, and if I'm feeling sad, I'll listen to a slower song, or if I'm like trying to get pumped up, I'll listen to rock songs. Just music's really strong, so I turn to that a lot of the time.
And do you have anyone in your life that you can talk about those feelings if you ever need to?
Yeah, I have friends and family that I guess I could reach out to, but at the same time, I don't want to. What do I say? I don't want to reach out to them in a way that would make me feel weird for reaching out to them. Because, like, let's say I was crying about something, I don't want to reach out to my dad and be like, "Oh, dude, I was crying because I lost $20." I don't know. Like, I wouldn't reach out to him for something simple as that. If I was crying about that, I would just, bottle that up and keep that to myself.
Mm-hmm.
But if it was something serious, then I'd reach out.
And how do you think bottling up your emotions affects you?
I mean, again, I think it's fine because as of now, because I reach out to music and I just listen to music. So it might be keeping it bottled up, but at the same time, I might not be releasing it, but at least I'm like hearing it come from another source other than myself.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like that you found an outlet that works for you, and that you don't necessarily think that every time that someone cries or a man cries that they're weak. It depends on the situation, and that you're okay with your emotion.
Yeah.
But you don't necessarily outwardly show it all of the time.
Yeah.
Well, let's brainstorm on some ideas that you could use to get those emotions out other than music. Would you be okay with that?
Yeah, that's fine.